Yeah, the question I got asked yesterday was like, well, yeah, I said, well, I've heard of a child that had heart palpitations from being close to the, oh, yeah, well, what's your proof? Is there any kind of factual stuff that you guys can put on the website that people can be informed with?
Well, there are a number of websites out there. We at stopsmartmeters.ca have not been putting a great deal of that kind of information on our website because the focus of our website is to collect pre-registration for the initiative once it's eventually launched. But we do have links to stopsmartmeters.ca, which is the website for the coalition, and also to the Citizens for Safe Technology.ca. And there is an awful lot of information on those two websites as well as others about the implications of smart meters and other wireless technology.
So smart meters can potentially cause children to have certain physical reactions, is that correct?
There are lots of documented situations of the health impacts of smart meters and the wireless frequency radiation being emitted by them. And although BC Hydro is claiming that the emissions from these meters are several times lower than the Safety Code 6 standards, there is also a large body of medical science which shows that levels of radiation that are thousands of times below what these meters will operate at are harmful to humans, actually can interfere with ECG wavelengths and cause other serious and permanent damage. But for some reason, BC Hydro's not managed to find this information in their research on this project.
What's Hydro's current position now? If you put a sign up, for example, saying, I don't want a smart meter installed, or if you call after and say, I didn't agree to this, is the policy right now with BC Hydro to come and remove it, or to not install it if you've given them that warning?
Well, the rules around what they will actually do is not really hard and fast. But from what we understand and from what they have told us is that if somebody does make a request not to have a smart meter installed, particularly if they have a health concern, that they will abide by their desires. They're not saying they're not ever going to put a smart meter in, but they will wait and delay the installation.
BC Hydro's mandate under the Clean Energy Act is to have all these meters installed by December of 2012. They do not have to have everyone in this year. So if you object to having it, or you put in place sort of measures to stop them being installed, physical measures to stop them being installed, they will bypass you with the expectation that they will come back and install it. But hopefully by then, there will be enough groundswell of public opinion that we'll be able to reverse this process.
Sorry, if you don't get the initial support for the petition, is there a backup plan? Or is this just the focus for now?
Well, this is the focus for now. I mean, we only can deal with what's before us, and the task is going to be quite great, and we're going to need a lot of support, and we're going to need to reach a lot of people in this province. So that's what we're focusing on right now.
What do you see the largest impediments to this successful initiative?
Well, I think it's always going to be the provincial government. And by the way, it may not be just the Liberal government. I think every provincial government has sort of, they don't like the idea of a referendum. So we have to be keeping that in mind, that it's very often the case when citizens really have strong desires, and this does cut across all political ideologies. We're a nonpartisan group, and these come down to some very, very fundamental values that we share in our society. Of course, the values around democracy and the freedom of having the choice, but also the idea of having safety within your home, privacy within your home. These meters are very, very invasive for privacy, and there's certainly enough evidence to show that this type of radiation does cause negative health effects. So again, these are just fundamental values that we all share in this province, and I think the government, no matter what stripe it will be, always is hesitant to allow this to happen.
Well, BC Hydro has stated publicly that a 20-minute cell phone call is the equivalent of 20 years of smart meter exposure. So what do you say to that?
Well, I mean, we have asked, and Steve has actually officially written Hydro and asked for their data. They have supplied some, but I have to tell you that we've been involved in this issue myself, particularly for the last 20 years, looking at the health issues around exposures to this type of radiation, and no scientist in the world would make the claim that BC Hydro has made. There's no data to support that claim, and therefore, in our view, it's false.
Can you point to any studies then? Can you point to any studies or any URLs that have...
Well, if you wanted to, powerwatch.org, that's an easy one to remember. They're listing about 1,500 studies on that site, peer-reviewed research. The Bioinitiative Report has a couple of thousand studies. How many studies do we need here, folks, to take some prudent actions? You know, a lot of researchers are saying that there's more evidence that there's negative health effects associated with electromagnetic radiation than there is the evidence that smoking is causing cancer. So we're in an era right now where that we just have to move on. We have to accept that we have some very real health effects. Some of our political leaders have stepped forward very bravely. The Green Party has this year, and has actually accepted that there are health issues here, that we have to put that into the mix in our decision making, how we're going to use this technology.
I'd also like to add, there are cost implications here as well. We've talked about the $1 billion cost of installing this, and how, you know, if we reverse this, that's essentially the cost of democracy. But BC Hydro is making some pretty bold claims about the benefits. You may have seen in the press that this whole system is going to have a $1.6 billion cost benefit over 20 years. But actually, when you do the math, I mean, that figure sounds pretty impressive, but when you do the math, what it breaks down to is $1.20 per household per month. Now, right now, that won't get you a Mars bar. In 5, 10, or 20 years' time, it's going to be worth absolutely nothing. These are the kind of claims that they're using to justify it. Well, when you break them down, they're absolutely meaningless. Another claim they're making is a $70 million benefit over 3 years. What that breaks down to is $10 a year per household. And that benefit comes from laying off all the meter readers. Well, personally, I'd prefer to keep a meter reader for $10 a year. Yes. And keep him in
Right on. Any other questions here, guys?
Do you own a cell phone?
No, I do not own a cell phone. I gave up my cell phone usage after I looked at the evidence that this type of technology is harmful in 1993, for the record.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming out today.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.